Hey there, welcome to Business Breakthroughs. I'm your host, Neal DiPentino. So glad you could be with us today. Hey, we're going to talk a little bit, we're not going to talk a lot about startups and entrepreneurship, that type of thing. Our guest today is the founder of 24 different companies in high-tech, consumer goods, health, and manufacturing, with products being sold all over the world. He is the founder and CEO of Gusher. Welcome to the show from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the city of brotherly love, my friend Chris Joyce. Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Neal.
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? We've had some we're kind of like having a little bit of fun before we started the show, talking, just about basic life things, traffic and weather and, whatever. So we're done with all that. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty, though. We want to talk about how Gusher can help entrepreneurs and their business. But before we do that, we want to really, identify what an entrepreneur is, what they kind of need to know to get started. Startups, a lot of people that get into business and they just, they really don't have a good plan. Right. So we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff. But before we do, just want to learn a little bit about Chris Joyce. So Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I come from Dayton, Ohio, Fairborn, Ohio, small little town out there. I started my first business when I was 6 years old and was off to the races. I've had 24 companies across the globe, every type of industry imaginable, everything from consumer goods to manufacturing to medical devices. My products have been sold in more than 11,000 stores in 28 countries. I have users of my tech products in 140 plus countries across the globe. So I've kind of done a lot of different companies. And my most recent company is a company called Gusher, which is a platform to really create companies and launch companies without the need for capital, without the need for investors. So it's a way for really anybody, anywhere to be able to start a company, even if they have nothing. I mean, zero, nada. So what happens is people join these companies in exchange for performance-based equity. Nobody gets a damn thing, including us, unless the company succeeds, unless the company is able to launch into the marketplace. So it's really a way that I say to founders is, imagine that you had $1 million or $2 million in the bank account right this second. What would you do with those funds? How would you build out your company? And then Gusher that, because we do it all day, every day. And that's not joking. In every different industry, every different vertical, all across the globe. We have more than 350 different portfolio companies, and the methodology and process works, and it makes better companies.
I love it. So you help people who are getting into business to understand the processes, and you help them along the way, that type of thing. But before you actually even do that, you got to identify whether or not that person is really a business person or even an entrepreneur. So you've actually identified different ways that you can help identify whether a person's an entrepreneur or not.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Fundamentally, I think everybody has the potential to be an entrepreneur. So if they have that little voice inside their head that has an idea that says they can do something or should do something, that's the one thing that almost in a way from the time that we're kids, we're taught to drown out, to ignore that little voice. And many times that little voice is everything when it comes to being an entrepreneur, because you have all these different external voices that tell you it can't be done, it shouldn't be done, it wouldn't be done, couldn't be done. You have your own self-doubts that are crushing, but there's only one typically little voice that says, do it, you can do it. And I fundamentally think that, stroking that voice or feeding that voice is the key to being an entrepreneur and hanging on to it. And I think more than that, I think it's in a way your soul and reason for being here is to basically let that voice out, whatever that voice is. So, when it comes to being an entrepreneur and figuring out whether you're an entrepreneur, I've got all these different methodologies that if you come from an effed up family, if you have an ego as big as Texas, if you like going ahead and being in the fire and being uncomfortable, yeah, those are all characteristics of being an entrepreneur and what you run into. But fundamentally, it's listening to that little voice inside your head that says you can.
We can easily go the other way. And I can give an example. When I first started my business many years ago, my father-in-law came to me, pulled me aside. He was a great businessman. It was before he passed away. And he said, I'm going to tell you what, you're going to have some struggles. Okay. And you're going to want to give up. Even worse, he said, your wife is going to want you to give up. She's going to want you to go out and find a job. She's going to want you. She likes that, 9 to 5 thing. She likes that salary. She likes knowing what's coming in all the time. And I'll be doggone if he wasn't right. It happened. And I started having self-doubts. My wife started having doubts about me, but we kind of worked through it. And I didn't have a coach, but with you actually help people through that kind of situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we help them definitely one-on-one intensely because, again, we're all rowing in the same direction. We're not sitting there charging people money to get going or anything else. It's a type of thing that we all have equity positions or potential equity positions in getting those companies going. So we have a vested interest in making those companies happen. So when a founder calls you at 2 a.m. on a Saturday because the wrong honey was used in their initial drink run that they were manufacturing, well, I'm the person that takes those calls and walks them through it. And walks them off the cliff per se. When you need somebody in at Las Vegas at CES to close the ex-chairman of Silicon Valley Bank to invest in your deal, well, we get on a plane and we make that type of stuff happen. So we are there holding the hands of the founders, but we don't really call it a mentorship because it's not. It's really a partnership. We're more of partners with these companies, and actually what it becomes is more family. And I don't say that lightly. They really become like family. I had multiple founders at my house for Thanksgiving. I've gone to multiple founders' weddings. It's the type of thing that you really get involved with your quote unquote customers because they become part of you.
Outside of self-doubt, are there other things that maybe hold like a potential entrepreneur back, things that you actually either keep them from getting into business in the first place or, challenges they face in getting started?
I think it's one of the things is really a matter of perception. Okay. So one of the things that we have a hard time really breaking through is that there's a big perception that you have all these people that have these ideas in their head. And if you ask them why they don't do them or why they don't go forward, they don't say typically they're afraid. They typically say, well, I don't have money. And so not having that money is a perception, a false perception that they need to get started. So going ahead and almost in a way programming them to understand that they don't need money. They don't need money at all. I mean, $0 to get going, to really start down that path and to start building a business. That's a hard barrier. But once they're able to recruit one person onto their team, then suddenly the light bulb goes off in their head and they're like, oh my God, I don't need money. I never needed money. And it's a very short learning curve and then they're off to the races. So it's that perception of money that we see that really holds them back from doing it. And also maybe the fear of success. We see a lot of people delay, even though they have a path of doing it. And suddenly, they're just wired a certain way. So we can't be their psychologists. I wish we could, but we're there every step of the way if they need it.
Right. I've heard of the, fear of failure, but the fear of success, that's an interesting concept. How does that, what's that all about? How does that work?
I think some people are kind of like married in a certain state where they have this idea, almost in a way they're afraid of being successful. I think they're more afraid of their potential, of what would come after that. So even though it's going to sound crazy, and I'm not, some great big philosopher or psychologist or anything else, I think people tend to stay even in a bad situation just because it's comfortable. It's something that they're familiar with. And so going ahead and putting their idea in their head out there, yeah, there's the fear of criticism, whatever it may be. But what if that thing works? It suddenly changes their life. It changes their life in a big way. And I think many times that is very scary, a hard thing for a lot of people to wrap their head around. And I've seen people self-destruct over that.
Oh, that's interesting. You said in that previous statement, you were talking about, you could get started. Some people can get started, or I guess all people can get started without having any money.
Sure.
That sounds like an interesting concept to me as well. Now, I can tell you that when I started my business, I had very little money, but I had a little bit of money, and I pretty much spent every bit of it to get it going. Yep. So what's the process there? How does that all work?
Sure. There's something called the vested interest market, the VIM, V-I-M. So this is a concept that's really important to what are called performance-based equity deals, or startups. So the VIM are the people that have the most to gain from the success or failure of your company. All right. So when you start building up a company with nothing, I mean, absolutely nothing, the first step is basically getting a team involved to help you leapfrog that company's development and actually become self-sustaining, generating revenue. Well, how do you do that? Well, if I start a company and whatever it is, company A, and I'm able to get some capital and whatever, I simply hire people. I hire them in a transactional way. And, I have certain failure rates, certain success rates. But when you're hiring and bringing on and creating a team of VIM, vested interest market, what happens is because these people have the most to gain, the success rates are just dramatically higher. Let me give you a quick example. So we've got a company on our platform called Happy Howl. Happy Howl well as a dog food company. So Colin came to us a couple years ago and he said, hey, I had the sick dog. I took it to the vet and the vet said, put it on this dog food, then another dog food, another dog food. Dog wouldn't eat, dog kept dying. This is going somewhere, right? So basically, he had to go ahead and hack together his own dog food over 2, 3, 4 months. The dog magically came to life over 3, 4, 5 months, and he said he wanted to start a dog food company. Now, Neal, I don't know what you know about dog food companies, but dog food companies are extremely capital intensive. Their companies have been in business more than 100 years. They own shelf space. They dominate it, and they don't like competition, and they don't play fairly, all right? So he came to me and said, let's start a dog food company. I said, sure, let's start a dog food company. So he starts this dog food company, recruits this team. This team has managed, $50 million, $100 million, $200 million budgets. He goes ahead, profit and loss ownership. They get that. And sure enough, the team fails 6 weeks later because he didn't listen to me. He then listened to me. The second team he had all had something in common. They took off like a rocket. A year later, they're worth more than $10.5 million, $15 million. They're growing 30% month over month. Last month, they did 92% growth. National distribution, kicking ass with $0 invested. Now, I'm going to ask you a trick question. It's so simple an 8-year-old can understand. I want you to think like an 8-year-old, okay? The second team all had something in common. The first team did not. This is a dog food company. What did the second team all have in common? The first team did not.
I'm thinking two things. One, they all had dogs. The other one, they had a vested interest.
Damn right. All right. So they weren't just dog owners. They were dog parents. They didn't have kids. So they ate dog, breathed dog, pooped dog, shit dog. They got dogs. So they understood it. There was a shorthand there. So they all ended up pulling that right up the mountain exactly the way you do it. And so they all had this vested interest, this understanding of how to go ahead and build this company. And that's how you want to build your company. You want to build it with vested interest investors, vested interest market. And that also goes with investors and penetrating the market, which I won't go into because we're short on time. But the way to initially build a team is by getting other people interested in your company. If you can't get them interested, you can't get people on board with your team for performance-based equity, the idea shouldn't come to life. It should just die right there on the vine. But if you can get one person, then you have an 80% chance of succeeding. And that's a big deal.
I love what you're saying, and I totally agree with the vested interest part of it. But I guess in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, well, people still have to make a living while you're building this business. So what does that look like?
Well, think of it this way. The people that come into these companies are typically very high performers. So they're not people just starting off in their career. They're typically people that are experts at what they do. So if you end up bringing a CMO, well, that CMO has already had an established business. It's something where they have excess time, excess capacity to bring on board. And the focus that they bring is laser-like. You end up bringing on other people that are really in the same position. They're not sitting there struggling to make ends meet and to make this company happen. It's something that they're getting involved with because of impact, because of interest, because they like what it's about, not just to earn a paycheck, but to really get that company off the ground and for them to get another horse in the race and a possibility at big time of having something hit. And that's why they get involved with it.
So you're talking about people who from a higher level. So it's not like me going to my neighbor who I knows how he built a website one time for his kids' school, and so I think I'll give him a vested interest in my business and make him a partner. That's not what you're talking about.
No, actually, that breaks two rules. One, you never do business with friends or family on it, and it's too close for comfort. So what you want is something where you're developing this team from the very beginning. So you need the expertise of others. You bring in a CTO, a CMO, creative director, social media, biz dev, CFO, project manager, whatever it may be, whatever you're creating to build that company the right way from the beginning. But what that does is by bringing in those experts, you don't create an MVP, a minimum viable product. What you actually do is create a market viable product and leapfrog generational development to create a company that becomes self-sustaining from the start. And that's really important.
Okay, so I don't know anyone like that. I know a few people here. I know a few people there. They're all really busy. They're not really maybe interested in the same things that I'm interested in. How do I find these people? Is that something that Gusher provides? Is that what you're doing? Yeah,
that's what we do. That's what our platform does. It puts them together, puts the people. It gets you applicant flow. It facilitates everything, and we walk you through the process. And it's really, you can have companies that have very esoteric niches, something you think you wouldn't be able to find that VIM, the vested interest market for. And we do every time. It's something something that's really our forte, is getting those people involved with your company in the right way. And we have a saying, you don't need a team to go ahead and launch a company. You need the right team for you. And that's important, the right team.
Right. So have you ever come across, like, I'm sure maybe you have, but somebody comes to you, they have an idea that for a business, they think it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread, and only to find out it's probably like moldy bread. It's like not really a good idea. How do you handle that situation with people?
Well, think of this. So we're not sitting there, let's say, passing judgment on ideas, and there's a reason why. We believe in the market validation mechanism. So what do I mean by that? The fact of the matter is, most companies, when you take a look at them in the very beginning stages, they had shitty ideas. They had crappy ideas. Almost in a way, the crappy ideas are the path to creating good product, to creating a good company, to creating something of value. You have to go through that crap or those bad iterations to create something of value. And so typically what happens is a founder has this idea in their head on what they want to create, but more typically they have a problem they're looking to solve. And so by bringing these people together, what happens is you're able to create a better solution. You're dealing with people that are experts. So, whatever company we're dealing with, we typically say to them, you're not a medical device company, you're not a SaaS company, you're not a consumer goods company. First and foremost, you are a marketing and sales company. And when you put that marketing and sales component at the beginning with your team, that is Vim, what ends up happening is magic. Good stuff is created and better companies are created.
I love that. I wish more people understood that concept. And it's a concept that I've worked with a couple of clients over the years that really got it, and they really thrived. Everybody else was more concerned about the widget than they were the processes. So it's just kind of, I love what you're saying there. So you gave us a really good example with the dog food company and everything. I love that. Do you have any other examples maybe you can share with us where you've actually had someone who came to you with an idea, and you helped them through the process and helped them get going and had some success?
Oh, sure. We have something like Nomad, which is called Security in Motion. That's an electronics device, a traveling electronics device. They have a Walgreens deal that they just hit up. We have numerous consumer goods companies, everything from Pharmalogical to Bean Smashers, which is a new type of bean snack. We have many, many SaaS companies, a lot of software as a service companies, platform companies, travel companies. We have more than 350 different portfolio companies. I don't kid you, in all different verticals all across the globe. We've had everything from an 80-year-old grandmother in South Africa who got a QVC deal on a garment, textile, patented, everything else, to 20-year-old Villanova students that just sold their medical device company to Peter Thiel to go ahead and get the next round out in England. So, and everything from a 50-year-old fired marketing exec during COVID ended up getting product of the year in the trucking industry the following year. You name it, we've got it. And I don't say that lightly. All different industries, all different verticals, age groups, gender, ethnicities, it doesn't matter. Really, we're blind when it comes to that because the market determines it.
I love that. So in your process, then basically when you're helping these folks along, you're not taking any money from them. You are actually investing in their success. Is that correct?
We're very long-term players. Yes. The only way that we actually get anything is if their company is successful. And even then we get equity in the company that may not be worth anything at all. So we're there for a long-term player. Our main goal is really to go ahead and get that company to at least 10 million in valuation. And then it becomes more of a standardized type of play. But our main goal, our main strength really is to get that initial from zero up towards of 10 million, 15 million, 20 million in valuation.
Okay, so you're kind of like, and correct me if I'm wrong, sort of kind of like a Shark Tank, but you're not really handing out the cash. You're actually handing out the expertise and the help along the way.
We're kind of a benevolent despo. Think of us that way, all right? So we know what we're doing. We can't make you do what we tell you to do, but almost always we're typically right on that because we have the vested interest in getting a company there. But we have a process. It's 300 different micro steps. I won't go into that, but we take a company literally from ideation to launch. And it doesn't matter the industry or vertical. It works. And it creates a much higher success rate than anything out there, whether it's VCs, accelerators, incubators, Y Combinator, TechCrunch. We crush them when it comes to success rates.
I love it. Fantastic. We're coming to the end of our time together, unfortunately. Any thoughts that you want to leave our audience with as we close out?
I think you touched on it from the very beginning, and that's, what is the most important piece of advice you can give an entrepreneur or potential entrepreneur? And we always call the entrepreneurship journey the roller coaster of awesomeness, the absolute roller coaster of awesomeness. And there's only one person that can stop that ride, and that person is
Yourself.
damn right. So long as they don't
Me.
forget that. You are the person. That's it. So long as you never stop, you never give up, you'll get to where you want to go. That is key. Never give up.
Fantastic. Hey, if you want to know if you're an entrepreneur or not, actually go to Chris's LinkedIn page and look at his video on 54 ways to know if you're an entrepreneur. It's actually very entertaining as well as informative too. I really enjoyed that. So that was pretty fantastic. Chris, if folks want to find out more about you, about your business, how they can get involved, if they want to pitch you an idea, how do they go about doing that?
Sure. They just go to gusher.co, gusher.co, and they can log in, create a startup, create a draft, and we're on it instantly. We'll go ahead and see them. We'll interact with them. We'll take a meeting almost immediately with them. It doesn't cost a damn thing.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for being on the show. And folks, that is our show for today. So thrilled that you could be with us. Business Breakthroughs is sponsored by Titan Media Works. Check us out at titanmediaworks.com. That's works spelled WORX. And also check out all the other great hosts on Small Business Delivered Network at smallbusinessdelivered.com. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.